Hello everybody, and welcome to this video on how to play Altergeists well. I see a lot of people making mistakes with Altergeists, thinking they're underpowered in the current meta. I believe they're actually very powerful in the meta in Duel Links right now, and I'm going to show you how to play them properly. Altergeists usually lose, well, the easiest way to lose with Altergeists, apart from bricking, is actually just losing to yourself. So, in this slide, we're going to go through, on this video, we're going to go through 5 main points. The 3-phase game plan of Altergeist, the home zones of Altergeist, zones in this case meaning hand, field, graveyard, deck, micro combos, linking into Hextia, and how to play in each phase. We need to understand all these 4 parts first before we can understand really how to play in each phase of the game. So the 3-phase game plan, what is it? Phase 1 is survive, phase 2 is control, and phase 3 is dominate. We're going to start with phase 2. And the reason we're starting with phase 2 is it's the most critical phase, and understanding phase 2 makes it a lot easier to understand phase 1 and 3. What is phase 2? Phase 2 control is when you have this core loop going. You have a Silkwitous face up in play, you have a Conqueror in your hand, and you have a set manifestation on the field. Why is this important? What's it achieving? You're basically invincible by battle when you have this loop set up. For example, if your opponent attacks you, you negate the attack with Conqueror and special summon it. If your opponent attacks you again, you use Silkwitous to return Conqueror to your hand, and you return one of their cards to the hand, and Conqueror can still activate because it was returned as a cost. Your opponent is still declaring an attack against you, Conqueror is in your hand, it's not once per turn, it negates the next attack, special summons itself. The third attack is negated, quote unquote, by Silkwitous just bouncing the third threatening monster if there was one. Otherwise, Silkwitous can just bounce another card like a back row that they've just set so they can't activate it this turn, for example. Maybe some utility monster they've got out. What the set manifestation does in this, this phase is it gives you greater tactical stability and flexibility. If Silkwitous gets removed and sent to the graveyard, manifestation can just bring it back. You can use the manifestation even in your opponent's battle phase. If they attack you and your Silkwitous has been destroyed already, they attack you, you activate manifestation. You now have a face-up Altergeist in play, so Conqueror can trigger, summons itself from the hand, you get the Silkwitous from the graveyard back into play, you've negated the first attack, and you're back in this position. You can use Silk to bounce the Conqueror to negate the second attack, etc. The stability and flexibility that the set manifestation gives you is a huge part of being comfortable in phase 2 control. Once you're comfortable, so before you get to phase 2 control, you have to survive, and this is phase 1. It's very rare to open with all the cards necessary to jump straight into phase 2, those cards being Silk, Manifestation, and Conqueror. You can only play one Conqueror in the deck, you don't want to play too many Silkwitouses. So if you draw one of each, it's a rare occurrence. Even if you do draw one of each, it's not actually ideal, because it sets up your pieces in a fairly vulnerable way. Your Silk is just out there in the open, the manifestation is just set. Even though before I said the manifestation offers you a lot of stability, it does, but without access to the other Altergeist pieces, this is still a vulnerable setup, especially going first. Your opponent hasn't used any resources yet. They can MST the manifestation when there's nothing to use it on, then they can destroy your Silk. They could destroy the Silk, then MST the manifestation. If they do it the wrong way around, then it's still gonna disrupt your game plan entirely. It's a bit too vulnerable. I mean, it's better than nothing. It's better than a brick, but it is more vulnerable. So it's best to open with some control elements and spring phase 2 on your opponent at a time of your choosing, which is as late as possible in the opponent's turn, so they have the fewest options to deal with it. For example, if you do it in their end phase, they can't activate any of their set back row that turn. They can't respond to it by battle. They're trying to remove monsters before you get too stable. They can't play any main phase things. So the best possible time to spring phase 2 on your opponent is in your opponent's end phase. And that's what you want to do, it's not always possible. So there are 2 good openers to get you to phase 2. The ideal one is this one shown here, Altergeist Seek and Altergeist Manifestation. What you can do is you can normal summon your Seek. You link summon Seek into Linkuribo. This triggers your Seek in the graveyard and finds Multifaker and adds it to your hand. In your opponent's turn, as late as possible, you activate Altergeist Manifestation to revive your Altergeist Seek. Manifestation activating causes the Multifaker that you searched previously to trigger. Multifaker triggers from the hand and special summons itself onto the field. Multifaker then special summons Altergeist Silquatus from the deck. Silquatus then returns Manifestation from the field to your hand. When Manifestation leaves the field, Seek dies. Seek triggers again and it searches Conquery. And now in your opponent's turn, you have a face-up Silquatus, and you have in your hand a Manifestation and a Conquery. So in your next turn, it's really easy to set up phase 2. All you have to do is set the Manifestation. And so that is the easiest pathway from phase 1 to phase 2. Another pathway is a Marionette Multifaker. It actually misses Conquery. It doesn't quite get you all the way there. But if you have if you normal summon Marionetta, you set the Manifestation from your deck. You link Marionetta into just some random link 1, just to get Marionetta in the graveyard, therefore making Manifestation a chainable trap. Now in your opponent's turn, you can activate Manifestation whenever you like. Doesn't matter about the Marionetta, they can DD Crow, doesn't matter. But Multifaker now triggers from your hand and it can get the Silquatus. And Silquatus can bounce the Manifestation if it's still available. It's actually better to bounce Marionetta in this case if you can. Or if they have dealt with the Manifestation before the Silquatus arrives onto the field. When Silquatus dies, either by blinking away or the opponent runs over it, you'll get the Manifestation back from your graveyard. And now with this, you've got Manifestation and Silquatus available in rotation. You just have to find a way to get to Conquery. If you have enough link materials on the field, you can link them away into Hextia, and when Hextia leaves the field, she can find the Conquery. If that's the correct thing to find, we'll get into it a bit later, what you want to find and when. If you don't have those, you kind of have to improvise a bit until you draw into further pieces. There's some good micro combos that can help you survive. Your priority, like the low level priority, the one that's easiest to grasp onto, is just trying to trigger Multifaker. Just get some trap that you can chain. It might mean linking away your Altergeist into worse monsters, like in the Marionetta Multifaker combo, just to make Manifestation live. Okay, so if you've survived phase 1, you've transitioned to phase 2, and then you've got really comfortable phase 2 in the control phase, you move into phase 3. Exactly how to transition between these phases I'll cover at the end of this video, or the end of this presentation, because you need to understand some other concepts to make it a bit easier to fully understand. But in phase 3, Dominate, it's a mere formality. It's defined by indefinite resource loops like Grand Advantage. In this phase, you get easy access to spell trap negates, attack negates, bouncing cards, sending cards to the graveyard, retrieving cards from the graveyard. You have high attack monsters, a high number of cards in hand. Honestly, what can't you do in this phase? Your opponent, there's no single card that they can draw to recover from this phase. You've just won. As I say here, good opponents who trust in your abilities will concede by phase 3. Once phase 2 has comfortably survived an entire enemy turn, that's a good signal that you can transition to phase 3. The main way to lose between phase 2 and 3 is actually to defeat yourself. And so I more want to talk about in phase 3 how you lose rather than how you win, because that's so trivial. Altergeist players have lots of opportunities to set themselves back with their own cards, and that delays the onset of phase 3, or it weakens your position in phase 2, sometimes both. Here are some examples here, which will make a bit more sense in the next topic when we talk about home zones, but for now, just look at these, think how often you might have done them if you've played Altergeist before, and realize now that they're actually quite bad. If you return Multifaker to your hand to pay for Silquatus costs, when there are other options of what to return, that's usually bad. You might think, oh, but Multifaker's got a great in-hand effect, but you'll see why later. you prefer to put Multifaker in your graveyard. Linking Awakened Query, you think, oh, it's done its job, it's negated my opponent's attacks, it's useless on the field now, let's just get rid of it. But you'll see later that Linking Awakened Query is actually one of these moves that sets you back. Unless you specifically have a plan for what's going on. You'll see later what I'm talking about. If you search too much with Seek, if you use personal spoofing to put your manifestation away without a clear plan of how to get it back, you summon to the wrong zones. All these things set you back and delay your win, delay the answer to phase 3, keep you in phase 2. Sometimes it even stops you getting to phase 2. So let's talk about home zones. This is a really important concept in Altergeists, and when trying to figure out how to explain how to play Altergeist to other people, this is the concept I've come up with. This is usually what I'm thinking about subconsciously when I'm playing the deck. Understanding home zones helps you make generally good decisions to help you transition between the 3 phases. Every Altergeist has a different zone that it's good or bad in, and understanding them helps you make generally good decisions when you're under pressure. Maybe the time is ticking. Maybe you think, oh, this is a good play, but maybe this other play is slightly more optimal, and then the time is ticking, you're going to just make the good play using the home zones. They will stop you making a bad play. Alright, so let's define the home zones. When I'm talking about zones here, I'm talking about hand, field, graveyard, and deck. I don't mean the monster zones or the spell and trap zones. So a good zone is a zone where an Altergeist card will perform well because its abilities work well there. Or it's a zone where it is easy for it to move from this good zone to another zone, and it will give you the strong benefit. For example, Marionetta, I say, is good in the hand at certain points of the game, because when you normal summon it, it's very easy to normal summon a Marionetta from the hand. You'll get some benefit. Or it could be it could be a good zone because it's easy for this card. It's easy to access this card from this zone. It's kind of related to the thing, but for example, Multifaker is good in the graveyard because it's really easy to get it from the graveyard into play, and then it will trigger its ability that way. A neutral zone is a zone where the card can make some contribution, but it's a very basic contribution. For example, it just exists as a monster, maybe. But often this zone is used as an easy transition into a good zone. It's better to transition from a neutral zone to a good zone, but there's no pressure to do so. Whereas a bad zone, there usually is pressure to change. Card does not contribute much in a bad zone, and you must make effort to change it from a bad zone into a more favorable one. For example, Conquery in the deck, that is a bad zone. Silquitous in the hand is a bad zone. You must make a large effort to remove Silquitous from your hand and put it in a much better zone. Another way to think of phase 2 is when every card is in a good or a neutral zone. When I say every card, I mean at least one of each Altergeist name. I don't mean literally every single card in your deck. You're truly comfortable in that situation. It helps you really control the game. And now we're starting to see why I talk about home zones. It helps us understand the phases, and later on, when we marry these concepts together, I'll show you how to play through each phase. So I've got a couple of slides here which show the same information in different ways. It's just telling you which zones the different cards are good in. So I'll go over them here in the card by card breakdown. So Silquitous. The good zones for Silquitous are the field and the graveyard. Silquitous is obviously fantastic on the field because she has a very good effect on the field to return another Altergeist card to your hand, to return an opponent's card to their hand. You get to do that twice per turn cycle, once in your turn, once your opponent's turn. She's very, very good. She's good in the graveyard because when she moves to the graveyard from the field, she's going to trigger and return an Altergeist trap, which is really only Altergeist manifestation, from your graveyard to your hand. She's easily accessible from the graveyard. That trap that she's returned can get her back out of the graveyard and put her back on the field, where she's also very good there. So field and graveyard, absolute best zones for Silquitous. Neutral zones are the deck. Silquitous is fine in the deck because she can be searched out by Multifaker, but she's obviously not contributing anything to the game while she's in the deck. Bad zones are the hand. She's very hard to move from the hand. You need to draw basically personal spoofing or spend a lot of effort getting her out of the hand. The easiest way to move her out of the hand is by normal summon, but Altergeists have 2 other cards which compete for the normal summon, so you really don't want to have to do that. Concurry. Good zone is the hand. That's where Concurry's best effect triggers to negate an attack. The neutral zone is the field. Concurry does actually have an effect on the field. When she's summoned, you can choose a face-up card your opponent controls, and so long as it and Concurry remain face-up on the field, then that target's effects are negated. That is actually relevant sometimes. It can come up. It can be very relevant when it does come up. But in general, Concurry just exists on the field. It's easy to move her from the field back to the hand, which is why it's a neutral zone, not a bad zone, because Silquidus can easily return Concurry with Silquidus' effect. And it can be it can be used as a link material, even if it's not ideal. It can be done. So it's just neutral on the field. The bad zones are the deck and the graveyard. You have to make an effort to move Concurry out of these zones usually. Personal spoofing solves all of the zone problems, so I'm not going to consider it when talking about good, neutral, and bad zones. But Concurry, usually there are things that you need to search first before Concurry to get it out of your deck. And similarly, usually there are other things you need to get out of your graveyard when Concurry is in the graveyard. If Concurry is in the graveyard especially, it puts a lot of pressure on your manifestations, for example, because you need to get Concurry back into your hand for it to be good. Multi-Faker. The good zones are the graveyard and the hand in phase 1, and a little bit of phase 2, like early phase 2. Multi-Faker's obviously good in hand. Let's get this out of the way first. Multi-Faker is obviously good in the hand because when you activate a trap, Multi-Faker triggers, it summons itself, it summons another Altergeist from the deck. Obviously fantastic. But why have I put that it's only for phase 1? Well, I really mean for phase 1 and early phase 2, and it's because you only really need Multi-Faker to trigger from the hand once, maybe twice, to get all of your pieces set up. After that, all it does from the hand is it just special summons itself, and the search is irrelevant usually, or it's just searching a guy, it's just making guys, it's not actually contributing to advancing your phases so much anymore. However, in the graveyard, it's always good in the graveyard because you can easily summon it from there with Manifestation, with Marionetta, if you need to. It's basically easier to get out of the graveyard than it is the hand as you get later into the game. I mean, at the ideal time. It's still fine in the hand, to be honest, and that's why it's in a neutral zone in the hand. It's still very easy to get out. It's not competing with your normal summon. You just activate a trap in phase 2 or 3 and it gets out of your hand. The field, it's always neutral because once it's in play, it's just there. It just exists. But the 2 zones it's most likely going to go to from the field, the graveyard or the hand, are still good or neutral zones for it to be in. Bad zone is the deck. You want to get it out of the deck as fast as possible, and a lot of the priority that you'll have in phase 1 is getting Multi-Faker from your deck to your hand so you can trigger it. In Meluseek, the good zones are the field and the graveyard, and that's because on the field, Meluseek can be linked away and go to the graveyard, and then when it goes to the graveyard, it gets to search. It's decent in the graveyard because then it's easily accessible by Marionetta without consuming a normal summon on Meluseek. You can get it out with Manifestation if you need to, but not that you always do. But it's good to have Meluseek access in your graveyard. It opens up so many more options for you as you move through phase 2. You're trying to stabilize within phase 2 and then move into phase 3. The neutral zones for Meluseek are the hand and deck. It's neutral in the hand because it doesn't do anything in the hand, but obviously that's how you normal summon it, right? Meluseek doesn't have to be normal summoned, but early in the game that's usually the only way to get it out. but it has no special benefit on being normal summoned. The deck, it's fine because it's actually sometimes a fine multi-faker target to find special summon from the deck and then into play, just to get your Meluseek into rotation, into a good zone of the field or the GY. Marionetta is a bit more complicated, so its good zones and neutral zones are context dependent. So in phase 1 and 2, it's good in the hand, and in phase 3, it's good in the field. Why do I say it's good in the hand in phase 1 and 2, but not in phase 3? Because the normal summon effect of Marionetta has an ammunition count. Once you've searched all of your manifestations from your deck, she no longer has a normal summon effect. But that normal summon effect is very good when you're still searching out those manifestations. And that's why she's good in the hand, so you can normal summon her, get that effect. The field on phase 3, she's very good because she can start swapping. Like, by phase 3 you already have a loaded graveyard and you can start swapping her with other, well, it doesn't have to be her, you swap her or other Altergeists with Altergeists in your graveyard to set up particular board states to your advantage. Kind of phase 2, like, she's also decent on the field in phase 2 as well, actually. I probably should say phase 2 and phase 3 on the field. Neutral zones, the hand in phase 3, because sure, you can just normal summon her, but she doesn't. It's the same as Meluseek basically in phase 3. You can easily get it out of the hand onto the field, but there's no normal summon effect. The field, phase 1, her main purpose on the field is usually to be linked away to make manifestation live. Phase 2, it could be that situation again, but it could also be a good zone because you can swap her with something in the graveyard. She's neutral in the graveyard because she's not actively bad there. There are ways to get her back out of there, and then for profit, her effect. Primarily using Prime Banshee's effect when it leaves the field. Her bad zones are the deck. She doesn't contribute there, and she's usually not something that you want to summon with multi-faker. You normally want to find Meluseek. Like, if you're not finding Silkwood or Concurry, you're normally finding Meluseek instead of Marionetta. Altergeist Manifestation, the trap card, is good in the hand field and GY because it's easy to put back in the set position from all of these. If it's in the hand, well, you just set it, easy. If it's already set on the field, well, it's already set on the field, that's perfect. And if it's in the GY, you can get it back with Silkwood being sent to the GY. The bad zones are the deck. You just want to get it out with Marionetta. It's not doing anything else while it's in the deck. So here's the same information, just organized in a different way. It might be easier for you to understand this way. We look at the different zones and which cards are good, neutral, or bad there. There is actually a couple extra considerations here. Link Karibo is good in the graveyard because it can tribute your Meluseek that's already in play to special summon itself from the graveyard, and then you get to trigger Meluseek easily that way. Sometimes that comes up and it's quite relevant. In the deck, a good card in the deck is any Altergeist card, so long as you have at least one, because personal spoofing cannot be activated once you don't have any Altergeist cards in your deck. So that's the only consideration there, and the other side of the coin of that is it's bad to have 0 Altergeists in the deck for the same reason. That's just a consideration to keep spoofing live. Otherwise, all of this is exactly the same as the previous slide, just organized differently. So what do you use home zones for? That you use them to help inform your decisions under pressure. So for example, if you have a choice of what to link away from the field, you can link away Altergeists that are good in the graveyard and neutral or worse on the field, right? Sometimes it's still fine to link away like Silkwood, that's good on the field and the graveyard, because when Silk goes to the graveyard, she'll get back manifestation and put her back on the field next turn. Whereas Conqueror, for example, is not good in the graveyard, so you don't want to link her away. Another example is returning Altergeists that are good in the hand for Silkwood's cost, and this is something where I was talking about Multi-Faker before. Multi-Faker's utility in the hand reduces, whereas manifestation does not. Or Marionetta is good in the hand, so it can be better to return other cards to the hand than Multi-Faker if you have a choice. For example, in the phase 1 ideal opener, right, with Multi-Faker and Manifestation, sorry, with Meluseek and Manifestation, you return Manifestation to your hand because Manifestation is good in hand and Meluseek is good in the graveyard, and returning Manifestation to your hand will cause Meluseek to go to the graveyard, rather than just putting Multi-Faker back in your hand, which is mediocre. To help understand this some more, we've got two important concepts with home zones: mobility efficiency versus resource efficiency. First, what are they? Mobility efficiency is moving Altergeists to their most favourable zones with the least number of intermediary zones. And resource efficiency is moving Altergeists to favourable zones and accruing advantage along the way, usually going through intermediary zones. So for example, let's say we want to move Concurry from our deck to our hand. The most efficient way from a mobility perspective is if you link Meluseek away, you can just directly search Concurry and add it from your deck to your hand. The most efficient way from a resource perspective is, as an example, is if Multi-Faker special summons Concurry from the deck to the field, and then Silquatus returns Concurry to the hand as cost, then you get to also return an opponent's card to the hand. So you've eked out some extra advantage. Maybe this should be advantage efficiency more than resource efficiency. While still achieving the same end result. So when should you prioritize mobility efficiency over resource efficiency, and vice versa? So mobility efficiency is important when you need to move multiple Altergeists in a short time, or if you urgently need to move a particular Altergeist to a particular zone. So for example, if both Silquatus and Concurry are in the GY, then a single manifestation will be overloaded if it wants to return both to their more favourable zones. So mobility efficiency is more important here. You'd rather return Silquatus to the field with one action and Concurry to the hand with one action. If mobility efficiency is not required, then you can aim for resource efficiency. So for example, if Meluseek dies in your opponent's turn when you're in phase 1, you could immediately search for Concurry and to transition into phase 2, assuming you've already got Silquatus and Manifestation, right? Or even just Silquatus. However, if there's no urgent need for Concurry, maybe your opponent doesn't have any threatening attacks, then you can search for Marionetta, and then you can fit in setting Manifestation from the deck, as well as getting a Concurry to your hand. So if Meluseek finds Marionetta, then in your turn, you can normal summon the Marionetta, set the Manifestation from the deck by Marionetta's normal summon ability, use Marionetta's ability to swap itself with the Meluseek in the graveyard, and then link the Meluseek away, and when you link it away in your turn, you search Concurry. And now you've been a bit more resource efficient, because rather than just getting Concurry, you've also got Manifestation set, which gets you in a much more comfortable phase 2 scenario. And Altergeist, this line here is quite important. Altergeist is about getting away with as much resource efficiency as you can. You don't want to prioritize mobility efficiency, but you have to recognize when you have to. So now we'll talk about some micro combos before I go into talking about linking into Hexia. And these are cards which, when you see them, you can recognize, oh, I've got a little micro loop going here, and it's just something to consider that opens up your different lines of play. I'm not considering the starter combos, because we've already gone over those and they get you to your phase 2 easily. So Silk plus Manifestation is more of a phase 1 combo. These two together is basically like you get a compulsory evacuation device every turn, except it can hit an opponent's any card, not just monsters. It's fairly obvious, but just the way it works. You have Silquatus in the graveyard, you activate Manifestation to return Silquatus to play, use Silquatus to return the Manifestation to your hand. Your Silquatus will die, but you will immediately return an opponent's card to their hand as well. So if you've just got access to these two and nothing else, it can help you survive a bit by giving you a compulse every turn. Silk plus Concurry is like the phase 2 combo, but without the set Manifestation. You basically get to negate probably one attack. Like if you start with Concurry in play, you get to negate one attack and bounce one thing per turn. Without Manifestation access, it's harder to Not always. It can be harder to get the Conquery back in your hand. You might need to use it to link away or something. But it's like a micro version of once you're in phase 2, basically. Another example is Marionetta and Prime Banshee. That's more of an endgame combo, but Prime Banshee dies, it can get Marionetta back to your hand, and then Marionetta can swap itself with another Altergeist in the GY. And now that you've got Prime Banshee in the GY, so you can get Prime Banshee back with Marionetta. If Hextia is pointing to Prime Banshee, now when it gets sacked, you can easily get something like Conquery or something else from the GY back into your hand. Now let's talk about linking into Hextia, which I've said here is a powerful boss, but also a way to maneuver other Altergeists to more desirable zones. And that's the two main purposes of linking into Hextia: get a powerful boss, move the Altergeists into better zones. So when you're considering whether to link and what to link with, consider the home zones of the Altergeist cards. For example, Meluseek is good in the graveyard, but Conquery is bad in the graveyard. Therefore, if you have the choice, you'd rather link with Meluseek than Conquery. Similarly, you'd rather point to Meluseek than point to Conquery. Hextia herself can be linked away to make a new Hextia. That allows you to move cards from the field to the graveyard, and from the deck to the hand. Hextia's arrows are important and are the main consideration of where to place main deck monsters at all stages of the game. It's honestly one of the trickiest things about playing Altergeist, is figuring out where you're putting your monsters. So let's talk about that. So usually Hextia is going to be pointing in the leftmost or rightmost main monster zones, because if Hextia is in an extra monster zone, she's pointing straight down. Therefore, as a general rule, you want to avoid summoning Conquery into those zones, because Conquery doesn't want to be attributed to Hextia's effect, because the graveyard is a bad zone for Conquery. Yeah, so that basically means you usually leave the middle monster zone open for Conquery. Hextia loves to point to Marionetta for the attack buff. She becomes 3100. Meluseek loves to be pointed at by Hextia, so Meluseek can trigger her search when she's tributed. And Hextia loves to point to and be pointed at by herself, so she can trigger her search if she's tributed, and she has 1500 attack to boost another Hextia up quite a lot. Silquidus and Multifaker have interesting considerations here. Would you rather point to Silquidus, or would you rather point to Multifaker? Both list the GY as a good zone. So there's actually, it actually changes depending on the circumstances. If you have no other Altergeist cards for Silquidus to return as cost, it's generally better for Hextia to point to Silquidus. Otherwise, it's generally better to point to Multifaker. So, I'll explain that now. So, if Silquidus can only return Multifaker, and Hextia is pointing to Multifaker, then that Multifaker is overloaded, because if you're bouncing a card, you're returning a Multifaker, you can no longer negate a spell or trap. If you tribute the Multifaker to negate a spell or trap, it can no longer be returned as cost for Silquidus, and now you can't bounce a card. So if Hextia is pointing to Multifaker, Silquidus has no other things to return as cost, you will only ever get to do one of the two: bounce a card or negate a spell trap. However, if Hextia is pointing to Silquidus, then you can bounce a card by returning Multifaker as cost, and now Hextia is still pointing to Silquidus, so then later you can negate a spell trap by tributing the Silquidus to the Hextia. You won't always get to do both. Your opponent might activate a threatening spell or trap before you get to bounce with Silquidus. And because you have to chain to the spell or trap card activation or effect, you won't be able to get a sneaky bounce in and then tribute to Hextia. So you still only get one in this case, but you have the opportunity to get both effects, depending on the order your opponent does things in. That's why it's better to point to Silquidus if the only other Altergeist card you'll have access to return as cost is Multifaker. However, if Silquidus has another Altergeist card it can return as cost, such as an Altergeist Manifestation that you can just activate in response monster something and then return it as cost, or another Altergeist monster, then it's better to have Hextia pointed to Multifaker because it's no longer overloaded. You can tribute the Multifaker to negate spell traps, and you return something else to bounce a card. You get to do both in this case. So now we've talked about the general high-level concepts you have to bear in mind, what your goals are when you're playing the game. Well, we'll go over the goals now here. This is how to play in each phase. Phase 1, survive. So your goal is to transition to phase 2 in as few of your opponent's turns as possible. So your priorities are survive, transition, disrupt. If you don't need all of your resources to survive, then you try to transition. If you can't transition, then you disrupt. What this means in general guidelines is, for example, with Meluseek, you have to make a choice in Duel Links. In the TCG, you can attack with Meluseek, send a card to the graveyard, and then main phase 2 link Meluseek away and get the search effect. There's no main phase 2 in Duel Links, so you have to choose. Are you going to disrupt your opponent, or are you going to find more Altergeists? And if you're in phase 1 of the game, well, look at these priorities: survive, transition, disrupt. Linking into Linkuriboh helps you survive, but that's not the main thing really you're looking at. It's transition. Linking Meluseek away is going to help you transition faster. And this comes before disrupt, and so it's usually correct to link Meluseek away. The only time when you're in phase 1 where you wouldn't link Meluseek away is if you're in the survive, like Meluseek's effect to send a card to the graveyard is somehow necessary for you to survive. You never want to use Meluseek's disruptive effect just for the sake of disruption here. So this is how the phases, the priorities and the goals help you make generally good decisions under pressure. Once you've transitioned to phase 2 control, you're trying to transition to phase 3. You're not under so much pressure as there is to go from phase 1 to phase 2, but the resources that you need to transition to phase 3 are often needed to re-establish the trinity of phase 2, and that trinity is, just as a reminder, Silquitous on the field, Conqueror in the hand, and a set manifestation. If you can survive your opponent's turn and re-establish the trinity with minimal resource use, that's when you can transition into phase 3. So, for example, if the only thing you need to change after the opponent's turn is return Conqueror from the field to the hand, and you already have everything else, you have the manifestation easy to set, you have a Silquitous already in play, it's completely trivial. You just return the Conqueror's cost for Silquitous' effect. That leaves you with set manifestations and normal summons to transition into phase 3. If you had a lot that you had to set back up again, say the manifestation is back in your hand or the Silquitous is in your graveyard, then you might need to utilize some normal summons like Marionetta to get Silquitous back out of the graveyard and then set your manifestation. You might need to do some work to get a Conqueror back into your hand. You might have to end the turn with Conqueror in play, and then you're not fully stable because you haven't set up the full trinity exactly. In these situations, you are usually not ready to move into phase 3. When you do get to phase 3, dominate, it's really easy to win, but it's also quite easy to lose. The easiest way to lose is to lose to yourself. It's not easy to lose to your opponent. It's easy to lose to yourself in this phase. Make sure you don't consolidate your resources too much. The general rule is that you can do whatever you like, so long as you don't make it uncomfortable for yourself to re-establish the trinity. When you gain experience, you can realize, oh, I can just win. I don't actually need to fully set up the trinity again. But in general, use this as a guiding principle as you gain the experience. Basically, just don't set yourself back. And other than that, phase 2 is a clear win. You make giant Hextias, pointing to other Hextias, pointing to Brine Banshees, pointing to Marionettas. You nullify all your opponent's cards with your myriad of control effects, all in engine, and you attack for lethal. So, in conclusion, what we've gone over is our 3-phase game plan, our home zones, micro combos, and linking into Hextia. Hopefully this presentation was very helpful to you, and what I'm going to do now is go into a replay and show you this exact game flow against a rocket player. I actually, I have actually recorded this presentation already, and after that I went into Duel Links and played some PvP games live, and that's where I got this replay from, but I forgot to change the view from the presentation to Duel Links, and so all of that footage was lost. You just hear me talking with no context. Alright, so this replay is from one of those games. I do make some misplays in here as well, but I think that's valuable to see as well. Misplays aren't the end of the game. You still use your guiding principles to move forward.
His deck contains a powerful link monster. Sniffing around.
Okay, so we've got the opening combo here, right, with Melody Seeker Manifestation. Dlvl, just ignore those are a bit experimental at the moment. And they're a tool for me to learn what to put in their slot. So he's going through his standard rocket combos, and he's going to make Void Ogre Dragon, which isn't that much of a threat in this matchup. So long as you can trigger Faker with 2 trap effects, you're fine. Or you just trigger it in their draw phase. When they have a card in hand, they can use Void Ogre. So, what should I do here? Well, I've got the combo, right? I should link this away, find a multi-faker, etc. And then I'll have phase 2 set up. But I don't do this. And this is a really good example, because you know why why that opener is good. This is a great example to show you how you can get punished for not doing it. I go for Disrupt. So I go to attack, he's got the Book of Moon. And now I have lost control of when I can trigger my multi-faker. I mean, if he was playing well, he should have Book of Moon this as soon as I knocked him something Melody Seeker anyway, so I'd already lose that control. But he gave me the opportunity to make the right play, and I still made the wrong play. The risk here is he can make Draco Berserker of the Tenyi. He didn't though, he made Night Swan. Evil Swan Nightmare. But if he made Draco Berserker of the Tenyi, he could essentially negate my multi-faker by banishing it from it when I try to use it in the hand. But luckily, that doesn't happen. And now I get to act as if I had made Link Rebo, basically. Except he's got this Evil Nightmare, but it's such minor disruption, I don't really care. So we get the multi-faker gets the Silquidus, and we just get to bounce something. It doesn't matter. Warning point, it doesn't matter, we don't care. So, now we're starting to get into the in-between phase 1 and phase 2. We're trying to establish that comfortable phase 2 control board. So what's this? Jackreed. So we linked away the Silquidus so we can get access to manifestation. Something else we could have done is linked away what we already had in play, found a Marionetta, normal summon Marionetta, set a manifestation from deck. That's a bit weaker if he had something like Warning Point here. And it also keeps the Silquidus in the hand, which is a bad zone. This way we get a Silquidus in the graveyard. I made Jagged ignore that, it was a mistake, I didn't need to do it. So I attacked, he forced out the Tribute, which made my Hexia smaller, which made it lose to the Rogue Tracer, so we're still not in a comfortable phase 2 yet. But we've got Conqueror in hand and a set manifestation. We're almost there. We're forced to use it now because of Void Ogre Dragon. We have to do it when Void Ogre Dragon can't negate. I'm summoning Multi-Faker here to the middle zone because it's ultimately going to get bounced for Conqueror. We're getting closer and closer to phase 2 now, right? I targeted the Rocket Tracer because he's forced to respond by popping his own Rocket Tracer, otherwise Rocket Tracer will be in his hand, and Void Ogre Dragon will be turned off. But we've got Conqueror, we've got Silquidus, we're getting closer and closer to phase 2. well, we're in phase 2, but establishing the ability to go to phase 3, we're getting closer and closer to. Marionetta gets our final manifestation. Marionetta also gets the Silkwater spec, and we are now in a comfortable phase 2. This doesn't matter because we were always going to want to return Conqueri. And now that's it, we've hit our comfort spot. So long as we survive where we can get back to the stage with minimal resources, then we know we can transition into phase 3. This is, I could have returned List to the hand and negated all 3 attacks, but I don't care about Silkwater's dying because I have 2 set manifestations, so I can just disrupt the back row. And then this is just getting guys on board, because I'm so comfortable now. And I could have easily been a Silkwater, which means I know that I've survived 1 full turn with a comfortable phase 2. Now I can spend my resources to go into phase 3. Flying Banshee isn't always what you go into when you do phase 3, but it is in this case. Now I'm linking away Conqueri because there's a special case. Flying Banshee is going to put Conqueri from the graveyard back into the hand, so it's really like I'm just returning it to the hand. Marionetta, we can get back another Hextia. Get back some more resource loops, get a Prime Banshee back. I make a mistake, I should have attacked that with Prime Banshee, because Prime Banshee can attack into 2100 now, she's already used her effect. This was a mistake by him, Boot Sector Launch is never going to work, because I can negate it with Hextia. But you see, I'm in phase 3 Dominate, it really doesn't matter so much now what he does, what I do. I'm always going to win from this position. Just complete control over the game. Disrupt the back row some more, get us back into the phase 2 position, but with all this phase 3 goodness going on. And from here, I know I've won. I can negate the spell trap, I have enough damage for lethal. Rather than fully set up my comfortable board again, like blink these away, make sure I've got set manifestations, etc. I just go for the kill. Negate that evil skin, doesn't matter. Bam. And that's it. So hopefully that showed you how to put into practice everything I talked about in the spreadsheet. Making sure Altergeists go into good zones, making sure there's a clear delineation between phase 1, phase 2 and phase 3. And finally, I'm just going to jump into some PvP games now, so you can see it live. Again, so the Jar of Greed's in my deck. I'm just seeing if I lose a game and I have Jar of Greed in play, I can think, okay, what would have been the best trap available to us to have in that situation, so I can figure out the best traps to play in. Full heavy traps could be part of Duality, Effect Veiler, best anything really. But what I do like about Jar of Greed at least, is I can chain it at any time to trigger Multifaker whenever I like. Now this is a really hard matchup, well it's about 50-50 I'd say, but they can put out a lot of stuff, basically. And here, see, Jar of Greed will be chainable to Multifaker, but we've also got Marionetta. I'm considering just normal summon Silkwater because we'll be able to use Jar of Greed to trigger the Multifaker. But I'm going to actually, and then Multifaker can get the Conqueri, which can negate something like a Lackluster Shot Honorary of the beginning. I actually like that more, I think. But this gets the manifestation into rotation as well. I'm just gonna, so rather than think about it too much, I'm gonna follow my guiding principle and try my best to get manifestation into rotation. Let's set this. And because I can chain whenever I like, I'm gonna, because of the Jar of Greed, I'm not gonna link away the Marionetta into a useless link monster. No mistake, we'll see. But I can always analyze after the game if I should have just normal summoned Silkwater here. take the chance to get it out of my hand. I mean, this is a good reason not to, right? Because now he could just banish the Silquitous with this. And I would be forced to respond. So yeah, I've just shown myself, no, it's good that I didn't banish the Silquitous. Normal summon the Silquitous. So what's tricky about this matchup is you're kind of overloaded in threats you have to deal with. You have to deal with the Envoy of the beginning, and you have to deal with the other guy, this guy, so that you get your effects in the battle phase. But if you deal with that guy without negating this guy, he can attack twice. And if you deal with this guy, then this guy, once he kills one of your monsters, will just shuffle all of your things away. So that is the part that makes the matchup the trickiest. They also often have something like Endymion to destroy your back row at inopportune times for you. Whereas if this Jar of Greed was something like Warning Point, for example, or Ballista Squad, this would be much easier, because I can just, then I have the tools to deal with both guys. So what he's thinking about here. Right, he's going for it.
I'm counting on you. I ritual summon a monster.
And I'm just gonna have to deal with that guy. I am considering searching Concrete out of the deck. Nah, that's a bet, because I actually have to get rid of.
I don't think that's going to help. I activated a trap card, so I can.
I have to actually get rid of this guy, so he doesn't just attack as well.
Altergeist Multi-Faker. When Multi-Faker is special summoned, her effect activates Altergeist Silquitous. I activate Altergeist Silquitous.
We return Marionetta because it's an attack position. Oof. Okay, that means we've just lost. But, like that Jar of Greed, for example, yeah, we still lost because it's 52. Oh no, 52 hurt. No, we survive. Oh no, we don't survive. I forgot about the burn effect of this guy. Whereas if I'd revived the multi-faker for this guy, he could just still attack twice. But like, that was down to Jar of Greed being Jar of Greed. But you can see the decisions that went into the phase 1 there. Like if Jar of Greed was an actual, you know, just for this, I'm not, there's educational purposes, this isn't for myself. Let's make Jar of Greed something actually useful. What have we got? Bottomless, Ballista Squad, Canadia. I do like hard removal. I'm just going to go with Canadia for now, simply because it's easier to chain. I've already got as many warning points as I own in the deck. But like, if that was Canadia, I could have just put the Lackluster Soldier face down and I would have been fine. Okay, great, I get to redeem myself.
As a hacker,
Of course.
Okay, we have, I mean, we already have a multi-faker, so we can use the melee seek to search for Conqueror. We might be forced to trigger manifestation early because of Endymion, MST, something like that. Like, with them going first, if they simply have 2 MSTs, we'll just lose. Or if they have MST on the manifestation before we have a chance to activate it, and then they will be forced to use Warning Point on Endymion.
I'll give it my all.
So here it's actually really tempting to attack with the Melee Seek in the Disrupt, right? Because we already have Multi-Faker and
I activate
possibly
my
a
ritual
chainable
spell.
trap. It's riskier though, because if they do have an MST, if they set an MST and they use it on, say, Manifestation, Melee Seek may not even go to the graveyard. They might banish it, or it might go to the graveyard when we can't activate effects anymore, which would mean that our Manifestation is no longer
I
live.
special summon a monster. I end my turn.
My turn. I draw.
Okay, having another trap which is more likely to be chainable has made me not want to link Melee Seek away.
I set a card. I'll set a card.
Actually, they're likely to be big funguses anyway. I am still tempted to go to Linkaribo. But I have a chance to get rid of both at the beginning here. I'm going to take it, and then we can analyze afterwards whether it is still correct to just get the Linkaribo. Because Linkaribo can help negate attacks, basically.
Dealing battle damage activates Meluseek's effect. Say goodbye to 1 card. I'll end
It's
my
my
turn.
Because he's surely he's not going to have 3 back row removals before I can activate one.
The spell card. Monster Reborn.
And that's funny.
Here it comes. I
Well,
special
Warning Point is
summon a
really good
monster.
here.
I can't let you do that. I flip over my set card. I activate a trap.
I will do this now. It's not exactly ideal, but it is, there's no guarantee that I will be able to chain another trap when I want to.
Altergeist Silkwitness.
I'm not getting Conquery here
I activate
because
my monster's effect.
that's negated. I'm not able to get Conquery here because I guess if he has like Econ, he can still, yeah. I'm not able to get Conquery because I don't have Melee Seek with a Manifestation attached to it, because I don't make Linkaribo. At least I got rid of Monster Reborn.
From my hand, I activate my ritual spell. Here it comes.
I can use my life points to be a resource here and let them kill the Melee Seek to get the effect. I'm more confident doing this because it clearly doesn't have back row removal, so if he still summons this again, like maybe it also has a Chaos form, I can Warning Point it then.
Let's battle. Okay. My monster attacks. I activate my monster's effect. I activate my
No,
monster's
that
effect.
hurt a little bit, more than I was expecting.
Activates when she goes to the graveyard.
Okay, so I want to get a Conquery, but if I get Marionetta, then I can get a Manifestation and a Conquery, so let's do that. Ow. Thing with this Envoy at the beginning is it kind of does demand
I
hard
activate
removal.
my monster's effect.
I have to bear in mind this can set Hextia's attack back to its original attack. Bit spooky.
I end my
You're
turn.
playing well, but nothing I draw.
Okay, we're almost set up because we've got set manifestation and Sylphatus. All we're missing is Conqueri.
Activates her effect when she's summoned. I'll set a card.
Yeah.
I activate Altergeist Marionetter's effect. Altergeist Melusi.
I could get this back. We get Hextia here. Yeah. And Hextia. Okay. I just need to get that from Query.
I link summon a monster. Linked.
Well, you see,
Melusi's effect activates when she goes to the
grab the
graveyard.
Conqueri. And then I need to get that Melusi back.
Altergeist Manifestation. Altergeist Melusi.
And then
I
re-establish
activate a trap card, so I can special
board.
summon this card.
Put it in the middle because
Cultivator.
it gets bounced with Silquidus. That'll leave the middle zone open for
Her effect
Conqueri.
activates. Altergeist Silquidus.
And now we can deal with their board.
This'll work. I attack you directly. Dealing battle damage.
This is
activates
still the most
Melusi's
threatening one by
effect.
far.
Say goodbye to one card. I activate Altergeist Silquidus's effect.
We make the space for Conqueri, incidentally remove part of his board. Give us some damage, and now we're in a very comfortable phase 2.
Be careful.
We have a lot of resources. We have the Conqueri Silquidus loops it up. We have something to stop the battle phase negation
My
guy.
hand. I activate my spell.
Yeah, I mean I may as well negate this.
Hextia activates
And if
her
I let it resolve, I won't be able to negate the next thing anyway. Question is, do I want to revive something to
Melusi's effect activates when she goes to the graveyard.
put there? To negate another spell trap. Yeah, I think so.
I activate my trap. Altergeist
biggest thing.
Manifestation. Altergeist Marionetter.
I activate my
Oh.
ritual spell.
That was a mistake. Don't know if he knows that Hextia can negate that.
Altergeist Hextia activates her effect.
He might be cut off the skill now. I just realised I've cut my. Oh no, I don't cut myself with Silquidus because this one impact is very, very
I
useful.
summon a monster.
What's this doing here? Why is this? Why? I don't know why that's summoned.
Let's battle.
Oh, okay. He's just losing.
Go. I attack with my monster.
And we're in phase 2, so we have full control over this.
Query's effect activates from my hand. Altergeist. Special
Nice,
summoning
okay, it doesn't he's realised he's lost. So this was a very comfortable phase 2, which means that we've moved into phase 3 in our turn. It'll take minimal resources to re-establish our phase 2 Trinity. All we have to do is normal summon Marionetta. We could even banish a manifestation from a graveyard to get the other one back, and that would also set one from the deck. It just doesn't matter what we do here, we've won.
Marionetta activates her effect when she's summoned. I set a card. I'll set a card.
Like, there's a lot more I can go into, but there's no need. We've just won.
Looks like your bank account's empty. I attack you directly.
So yeah, I think that redeemed my previous Blackluster Soldier game with the Jar of Greed. Yeah, I think that's a great showcase of what you're trying to do with the deck. I think I will do one more because we might get a random scenario, I might get something where I struggle, you can see me make some misplays as well. Even though I know the theory, in the moment it's not always easy to follow it, and that's okay, so long as you just keep learning from experience.
Can't wait to.
It looks like it's the mirror. The mirror is very interesting.
It's my turn. Altergeist Marionetta. Marionetta activates her effect when she's summoned. I set a card. I'll set a card.
I'm going to link Marionetta away, because I already have access to all of my manifestations. Her normal summon doesn't do anything anymore. But what this does do is it makes my manifestations chainable, so if I draw a multi-faker, I can just easily chain it and get a multi-faker effect at the time of my choosing. Whereas if I leave Marionetta in play, for some reason my opponent might bounce it back to my hand with Silquatus, and then I don't have a chainable trap for multi-faker.
I've put together. Here I go. I end my. It's my turn. I draw.
This is going to be hard if he does have multi-faker.
Let's battle. Take this. My
He's got a
monster
chainable
attacks
trap
you
of some description.
You're feisty.
Maybe it's IDP?
I've put to my turn. I
IDP
end my
is
turn.
rare in Altergeist because it conflicts with multi-faker.
I draw.
Has some spoofing. Like Emulate Elf. Or maybe he has a trap he can activate that, but he doesn't have Faker. Like me. Melisseek isn't so great of a draw anymore actually because I made this. Okay, well, now I don't care anymore. I was going to say, Melisseek wouldn't be such a great draw because I couldn't link it to Linkuriboh because I have no zones where I can make a Linkuriboh.
So I can special summon this card. Altergeist Multi-Faker. When Multi-Faker is special summoned, her effect activates.
Yeah, let's not allow that to
I don't
happen.
think that's going to help. I flip over my set card. I activate a trap.
I wish I had multi-faker here, but I didn't. Oh, I don't actually want to kill their multi-faker, because then it puts in a good zone for them.
Let's battle.
It's like, this zones helps you understand the mirror actually.
And here I go. It's my. I draw.
Okay, now let's see if that's good. Being patient on these means that we don't get screwed by IDP if they randomly play that. Compulse is still annoying though.
Slow down.
Okay, they do
Here's
randomly
the
play
card
it.
I set. I activate a trap.
I can make an opportunity for my opponent to misplay now. If I kill their Faker and they have a set manifestation, they might revive the multi-Faker, forgetting that, oh no, they haven't summoned a non-Altergeist. So,
Altergeist,
never mind about that. Well, now I've got enough material for Link 2, and I'm definitely going to make Hextia.
I Link summon a monster. Linked. Meluseek's effect activates when she goes to the graveyard. I can't let you do that.
That's fine. It's
Here's
mostly
card
the,
I activate a
obviously
trap.
they need to do that, but it's not a big problem for me. I just need to get the Meluseek trigger, so I can get my multi-faker. And finally I can trigger my multi-faker now.
I activate my trap. Altergeist manifestation. Altergeist Meluseek. I activated a trap card. So
That
I
must
can
be
special
manifestation,
summon
I'm
this
pretty sure.
card. Altergeist Multi-Faker. When Multi-Faker is special summoned, correct when you can summon right place.
Yeah. I mean, depending on my skill, they might not have lost. I've won an Altergeist mirror before where they had everything set up, including personal spoofing. And I was down to 2 cards, I think, and I ended up winning. It's definitely possible. But something important to talk about in this mirror is if you are 1 step behind, like my opponent would be, they might actually end up 2 steps behind if I made it Hextia and still had manifestation set actually. But anyway, if you end up 1 step behind your opponent, you don't want to find Silquidus with your multi-faker. You want to find Conquery and negate their Silquidus. Because what are they going to do? Return the Conquery to your hand before the Silquidus is negated? Well, you want Conquery in your hand. It's about making sure you get your Altergeists in their good zones and keeping your opponent's Altergeists in their bad zones if possible, or their neutral zones if you can't put them in the bad zones. For example, I talked about wanting to put not wanting to kill their multi-faker, because that would move it from a good zone to a bad zone. Sorry, if I killed their multi-faker, it would move it from a neutral zone to a good zone, putting it in their graveyard. So I'd only want to kill their multi-faker once I have enough control where it even being in their good zone is, so many of my cards are in their good zones that it's okay. What's another example? Oh, Conquery. Like I wouldn't want to bounce their Conquery to their hand with my Silquidus, because then I'm moving it from its neutral zone to a good zone. Okay, well, hopefully that was a good video for you. I forgot to say at the start, but I reached Altergeists. I reached Dlvl Max with Altergeist, and I reached King of Games with Altergeist quite early in the season, and I plan to take Altergeist as fast as possible in Stage 2 of the KC Cup, which starts shortly later today. Unfortunately, I have work commitments and social commitments, which will stop me from competing the entire time. But we'll see as far as I can get in 1 day. Last time I tried that, it was with Speedroids and KC Cup for Worlds, where the prize was to go to Japan, and you needed to come top 16 to get the invite to Japan. And when I peaked, I was rank 18, but then I had work and I couldn't keep up with the entire event. But knowing I could get to rank 18, that felt good. And we'll see how far I can take Altergeists. Anyway, with that, thanks for watching, and good luck, Duelist.